Imagine a truly desperate scene, rivers pouring backward from the heavens, torrential rains falling like waterfalls, monstrous floods swallowing the earth, villages and countless lives swallowed up like an enraged beast, faced with a prehistoric deluge capable of wiping out human civilization. What exactly should mankind do about it? In the West, people just sought divine forgiveness, building Noah's Ark to escape the misery with a lucky few. But in the ancient East, a group refused to pray to gods. They didn't beg for grace or cower in cowardly flight. They elected a mortal leader who pointed at the massive waves. He unleashed a roar that shattered the silence of history. If heaven wants to destroy us, then we will fight heaven. If these waters drown our homes, we force them into the sea. This was the first ultimate collision of Eastern and Western philosophies. We didn't build an ark, we carved paths straight through mountains. Today we are looking at a superhero from the dawn of civilization, the original master builder and the absolute embodiment of determination, proving that a man's determination can actually conquer nature. He is known as Yu the Great. Mani grew up hearing the story of Yu taming the waters, assuming he was just a tribal leader digging ditches and carrying sandbags. But if you truly step into that epic history, you will find his life was far more incredible than myth. Not only did he tame brutal forces of nature as a mortal, he single-handedly forged China's very first dynasty, the Xia dynasty. Let's clear away 5,000 years of historical fog to reveal the tragic and magnificent life of this ultimate trailblazer. Yu was born with the surname Si, and given name Wemming. He had an incredibly illustrious lineage. Grandson of the Yellow Emperor and grandson of Zhuang Shu. Yet, instead of a charmed life, his story began in hell mode. During the reigns of Yao and Shun, massive floods ravaged the land, plunging the people into unimaginable suffering. Yu's father, Gun, was tasked with controlling the disaster. Gun was a hard-working man who spent 9 years sweating, employing the blocking method, building dams to hold the water back. But human strength has its limits against nature. Facing a prehistoric deluge, the earthen dams could not withstand the pressure. They collapsed, releasing water like wild horses and causing catastrophic casualties. Ultimately, after failing his mission, Gun was ordered to be executed by Emperor Shun at the freezing Feather Mountain. His father's death was a crushing blow to the young Yu. He lost his closest kin and bore a heavy stigma, the stigma of being the son of a condemned official. But history's turning points often emerge in the darkest moments. Emperor Shun, worried about finding a new leader for flood control, the entire court fell, deathly silent, knowing it was a suicide mission. In that suffocating silence, Yu just stepped forward. He didn't wallow in vengeance or shrink back in fear of his father's fate. Newlywed at the time, he took up his father's unfinished cause, along with the immense burden of saving the world. Bidding farewell to his bride, he took primitive measuring tools, a plumb line and a compass. Heading into endless swamps, he led a massive army of workers into the turbulent waters. He knew he had absolutely no retreat. Fail, and his father's tragedy would just repeat itself. Succeed, and he would create an unprecedented miracle. Upon taking charge, his first act wasn't to blindly start digging. Instead, thoroughly analyzed exactly why his father failed. Trekking across mountains, surveying the terrain with his assistants, Yu realized water naturally flows downward, and trying to block it was futile. The only way out was to channel it. Relying on extraordinary wisdom and courage, Yu left behind world-shaking achievements. He established a brand new strategy of prioritizing channeling, guiding the water according to its natural flow. High mountains in the way, Yu cleave them open. Blocked riverbeds, Yu dredge them. Historical records state Yu spent 13 full years taming the floods, traveling to every famous mountain and great river. He spent years soaking in freezing floodwaters, muddy thorns. The hair on his calves wore completely away. His soles developed calluses so thick, he walked with a severe limp. A gait later generations reverently called the pace of Yu. He literally used his own flesh and blood. Carve channels. Countless drainage channels carved right into the earth, forcing the raging floods step by step into the Eastern Sea. The Chinese landmass finally revealed its vibrant soil, emerging from beneath the endless ocean. Floodwater. Yu's vision extended far beyond just flood control. During his 13 years of endless surveying, his footprints covered every corner of the Chinese landscape, effectively conducting the nation's first large-scale geographical survey. On the waters finally subsided, he divided the realm into 9 provinces. Based on topography, soil quality, and resource distribution: Jizhou, Yanzhou, Qingzhou, Shuzhou, Yangzhou, Jingzhou, Yuzhou, Liangzhou, and Yongzhou. He established tax and tribute standards for each province to the central government, creating the incredibly vital historical document, the Yu Gong. From that moment on, a loose alliance of tribes gained a clear concept of territory, and the prototype of the Chinese divine land was forged by Yu's hands. Because of his peerless contributions, Yu achieved godlike prestige among the tribes. In his later years, Emperor Shun yielded to the will of the people. He abdicated his throne as the supreme ruler to Yu. Upon ascending to power, Yu made a highly symbolic political move. He collected bronze from the 9 provinces and cast 9 massive tripod cauldrons, engraving them with exotic creatures and grand landscapes of each region. These cauldrons forever became the absolute symbol of supreme royal power and the absolute symbol of national unity in China. Importantly, after Yu died, his son Qi inherited the throne, abdication system, and beginning the hereditary family world. China's first slave dynasty, the Xia dynasty, was officially born. Yu rightfully became its founder, forever revered as King Yu the Great. You might think Yu was an omnipotent deity, but he was ultimately flesh and blood, carrying deep emotional ties and endless pain. In his spectacular life, one story has been sung for millennia. Passing his door 3 times without even entering, many treat it as a mere myth or a moral pedestal. But from his perspective, it was an incredibly cruel sacrifice. Yu didn't marry his wife in Tushan until he was 30. Just 4 days after their wedding, the urgent order to tame floods arrived. With no time for a honeymoon, he tearfully bid her farewell. And he embarked on his monumental journey. Left alone, Onjiao stood on the hilltop every single day, gazing quietly in the direction of his return. She even wrote a hauntingly beautiful short song called Waiting for My Man, China's earliest recorded Southern-style poem, brimming with endless longing and despair. During the first pass, Yu's work brought him past his hometown. It was the most critical life or death phase of the project. From afar, he heard his wife's agonizing cries of childbirth, along with the midwife's urgent and frantic shouts. As a husband, his heart was tearing apart. He wanted nothing more than to rush in and tightly hold her hand, but as a commander, the levees ahead were about to close. Thousands of people depended on his immediate orders. Standing outside in the freezing rain for a long time, he clenched his jaw, turned around, and marched back to the site. During the second pass years later, the flood control army returned. You heard the crisp cries of an infant in the courtyard. It was his son, Qi, who had never seen his father since birth. His deputy, eyes red, pleaded with him to go in and take one look. Yu looked at his own mud-caked, scarred body, then at his exhausted brothers in arms who hadn't seen their families in years. Yu just shook his heavy head, choking back tears. Resolutely walked past his door a second time. By the third time he passed, Qi was an active young boy. Envy Zhao stood by the road holding the child. The limping, dark, and emaciated commander, Qi asked in his childish voice, "Mother, is that man my father?" Yu stopped, gazing from a distance at the wife and son he yearned for. He still didn't walk over to embrace them. He just waved with all his might and turned away, leading his men deeper into the unforgiving mountains. Did he really not miss his home during those 13 long years? Was he just a cold-blooded machine? Absolutely not. He was far from it. As Mencius later evaluated, if anyone in the world drowns, You feels as if he had drowned them himself. He believed that if even one person was drowning, it was his direct failure. He was not unloving toward his own family, but in that brutal and untamed era, he had to suppress his desires. If he didn't ruthlessly suppress his own desires to tame the floods, everyone's home would be devoured by the merciless waters. You traded his own lifelong loneliness and deep guilt toward his family, trading it for the safety of millions of Chinese households. Ultimately, this trailblazer of Chinese civilization died of illness, dying from extreme overwork at Mount Quiji while inspecting the Eastern Territories. Took a barbaric era with him to the grave, but he left behind an endlessly thriving China, looking back across 5,000 years of time and space. Exactly. Do we still remember you the Great today? Because he is much more than a historical figure. He is the architect of our nation's core cultural DNA. Starting with you, the Chinese people established a unique faith. We don't believe in ethereal saviors from above. We believe only in our own hardworking hands and unyielding will. When mountains block our path, we move them like you, Gong. When floods rage, we tame them like you the Great. When facing desperate droughts, we shoot down the suns like Hao Yi. What you left us wasn't just his mountain-cleaving tools, but a pure heart of sacrificing the self for the greater good, and the indomitable national backbone that man's determination can conquer nature, proving that we must constantly strive for self-improvement. As long as the spirit of you flows in our blood, no matter what terrifying storms we face in the future, the great ship of China will forever cleave through the waves and forge fearlessly ahead into the unknown.